On today's Mega News, Capcom presents, like 4 times in the span of a month. Hey, E3 may be officially dead now, but that's okay. Jeff Keighley is here to save the day so he can host Gaming Christmas twice a year instead of one. Hooray! Although I'm sure he wishes that he could host the Nintendo Direct because oh boy, that blew Summer Gaming Fest out of the water. Anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves. In this June 2024 edition of Mega News, or should we call it Capcom News at this point, because we're gonna just go through this not E3 season and discuss what the heck Capcom presented during this time frame. Especially as it pertains to Mega Man, because hey, that's what we're here for. And while we're here, we're gonna play the big catch-up game with a bunch of interesting related Mega Man news. All that coming up in just a moment. Let's rock. Welcome to your Mega News for July 1st, or maybe July 2nd, perhaps July 3rd. I don't know when this is going up, but regardless, we're coming to you from the ShadowRockZX YouTube channel and the mmnetwork.com as always. Hey, listen guys, you've already watched the intro. You know what we're all about today? Not E3 stuff and many more things, so let's just get right on with it. Before we get into the June news, however, I got a reminder for something that happened at the very end of May. In case you haven't played it yet, and you really should, the English fan localization patches for Mega Man Phantom of the Network and Legend of the Network from the Rockman EXE zone are out right now. You can download it and play. Now, I've already gone into all the details of what the patches do, how the game plays, and all that jazz in the previous Mega News episode, so I highly recommend checking that out if you want all the juicy details, because there's a lot going into this patch. I was also given the greatly appreciated opportunity to beta test the release candidate version of the patch before it went live, and the impressions were amazing. The localization patch is extremely high quality, amazing translation, and a lot of attention to detail to even the smallest things, like making sure all the sentences fit into the text box instead of having to go over into another text box and break up the sentence. They've also fixed bugs, added backgrounds to Legend of the Network, made a couple of quality of life improvements. All in all, especially if you're a Battle Network fan, this is a must play and you need to download this from the link in the description right now. You have to play this. That is my order for me. Especially as I have actually played both of these games now, I can say for sure they're definitely better than Battle Network 1. Yeah, don't let the fact that these are some 2000s mobile games distract you from the fact that these are some quality, very nice Battle Network games. Phantom of the Network takes place after BN3, and Legend of the Network takes place after BN5. So they really do feel like lost entries in the series that fit in right there in the timeline. Heck, a lot of us have been saying Legend of the Network may be way up there in like the top 3 Battle Network games of all time. And that is some high praise. There are definitely limitations to the hardware, but the only real downside compared to the mainline games is really the frame rate. Everything else you can get used to, and the battle system plays exactly like the mainline games. It's incredible. If you need help setting up the games, I put together a tutorial at launch day that will walk you through how to install the games, apply the patch, and even get started playing on the Steam Deck instead of Windows. Because yeah, after my last video, I found out you can actually play on the Steam Deck. And guess what? Proton on the Steam Deck actually runs the emulator a little bit better than on Windows. Because on Windows, the emulator has some sound issues, especially when you're in battle, but that is basically non-existent on Steam Deck. Now, it's still not perfect per se. I experienced a crash at least once in both of the games, but thankfully it was just once, and as long as you save often, it's not a big deal, but it's something to be aware of. And it's not the Steam Deck's fault, it's more that the emulator we're having to use right now is more of a test environment than actually being something that is meant for a public release. We're still waiting on the hopefully superior Squirrel JME emulator to come out, but at this point, God knows when that's gonna come out, let alone have the Rockman EXE games running on it. So in the meantime, I would say I prefer playing on the Steam Deck with the Doja emulator, especially because it fixes up those sound issues. And once again, I'll put a link to the tutorial that I put together so you can get started. One small disclaimer about that video: during the section where I show off how to apply the artwork on the Steam Deck, I did use a Decky plugin for that, and that's not part of the stock Steam Deck firmware. What Steam actually wants you to do is go to desktop mode and then apply the artwork through the Steam app on the desktop, which is really jank. But yeah, for that section specifically, that's what you really have to do. But in all honesty, the Decky plugins are awesome. I highly recommend them. Everything else should work as intended, so yeah. That's enough though. Do me a favor and go play it. And congratulations to Trez on the release. Oh, and congratulations on being able to localize an actually good video game this time. XD! Meanwhile, in the world of Mega Man mobile games, on June 3rd, Scilab Secrets announced that they have preserved the easy web versions of the Rockman EXE mobile games that we just talked about, and in addition, the side game for Phantom of the Network that's known as Battler's Tower. To explain what the heck the easy web versions are about, we have to explain the whole timeline of the releases of these EXE mobile games. So Capcom released these two games on competing platforms. On one side we have Docomo's iMode, and on the other, KDDI's Easy Web. Back in 2004, Phantom of the Network hit the iMode service first, and in those early days they had a pseudo paywall system in place where you had to use Battlers Points, aka BP, in order to unlock the BBS requests. The story chapters also came out bi-weekly until December when the game ended. A year later, in 2005, they would go on to release Phantom of the Network on the Easy Web service, where the BBS job requests were free, but you still had to pay 100 BP per story chapter. There was also some ringtones and wallpapers that you could get too. Capcom would later update the iMode release in order to create parity with how BP works in the Easy Web version. The same applies to Legend of Network, which launched on iMode exclusively in 2006, and then a year later in 2007 it came out on Easy Web. Finally, in 2009, Capcom released complete versions of both of the games on the iMode service. There's no more BP, all the story chapters and BBS job requests are included with the purchase, and these 2009 versions are the ones that are preserved and available to play today. However, it wasn't until June 3rd that Scilab Secrets were able to preserve the Easy Web versions that released in 2005 and 2007 respectively. They even got the Easy Web trial version of Phantom of the Network, which does include the battle tutorial that is missing from the main game. Alright, that's cool and all, but are there any actual differences between the Easy Web and iMode versions? Yes, there is. Although a small detail, Hatman's Silk Hat Attack in Phantom of the Network has a question mark on the hats over in the Easy Web version only. Meanwhile, the Easy Web version of Legend of the Network has moving backgrounds when you go into the cyber world. And officially, these backgrounds never ever came to the iMode versions, not even in the 2009 release. Thankfully, we don't actually have to play the Easy Web version to enjoy the backgrounds, because the Rockman EXE Zone was kind enough to port them to their English localization patch. So you get the best of both worlds. I'm not gonna lie though, when I initially heard about the backgrounds, I was expecting more than just the Hikari family symbol in the background of every single map. Yeah, that's all it is except for some different solid colors. But hey, it's better than actually plain solid color backgrounds like in all the iMode releases originally. Perhaps the most notable difference between the two versions though is the music, because it sounds awfully different in the Easy Web Brew version. I would compare the quality of the music between the two versions as something like the difference between a Super Nintendo and a Sega Genesis, or Mega Drive if you prefer. Because to my ears, the Easy Web version really does sound like a Genesis. It's amusing, but overall I prefer the iMode version's music, and I'm glad that that's the one we get to play. But alright, the easy web versions of these two games are just a curiosity at best. The real prize, in my eyes, is the Battle Wars Tower, which to this day, the iMode version of that Battle Wars Tower game has not been found, unfortunately. But at least we do have the easy web version, and if you're not aware, Battle Wars Tower is a side mode to Phantom in the Network, and essentially what it does is it allows you to connect online and download data for different players' folders, and then it will create a simulator where you fight against your opponent's folder, but you know, your opponent is controlled by an AI, it's not actual online battles. We wouldn't have that officially until the Legacy collections. And the storyline for Battle Wars Tower, Yai, who is notably missing from both Phantom and Legend of the Network for some reason, man, she got the short end of the stick. Yeah, she actually has a speaking role in Battle Wars Tower. Oh, there she is. And I mentioned that Phantom Network takes place after BN3, so the concept of Nebula hasn't been introduced yet, but oh hey, look at that! Battle Wars Tower actually mentions Nebula, so there you go. And the last two big features in Battle Wars Tower is a time attack mode for the Navi bosses, and even the DS versions of the Navis. Ooh. But of course, the big question today is, are these versions playable? Well, not exactly. Maybe on original hardware, but we can't emulate them just yet. That's because, unfortunately, easy web emulation is way harder to come by than it is for iMode. The only mobile brew emulator that we have at the moment is Melange, and that's created by user Namiag from Scilab Secrets. And that should tell you right there that, there's not much support out there at all for this. The Melange emulator only runs on early versions of Android, and it does not support sound either. And at this moment, the EXE games cannot run on Melange anyway. As of June 3rd, Phantom and Network crashes upon launching, and the rest of the games have network checks that have to be circumvented. So this is clearly all a big work in progress on the emulation side of things. However, on the original hardware side, there has been a lot of experiments going on with sideloading different EXE games onto the actual phones with varying degrees of success, as for example, Battle Wars Tower fails to boot past the title screen because it cannot retrieve certain game files. But on the successful side of things, leader Rockman Cosmo recently shared with me that they were able to get the actual English localization patch to run on original hardware, as you can see in this little video he shared. And you know, I'm an original hardware enthusiast myself, maybe not for mobile phones exactly, but I definitely appreciate the effort to get these kinds of things actually playing on real hardware so you can enjoy the games the way that they were intended to. It just feels more authentic that way. Although, unfortunately, I don't think many people are going to have these original Japanese mobile phones just sitting around waiting to be played on. Heck, I don't own one either. So ultimately, I don't see a lot of people taking advantage of the sideloading stuff, but it is definitely a very neat curiosity. Regardless, once again, we gotta thank the Scilab Secrets team and the Rockman EXE Zone team for all they're doing with preserving all the mobile games and producing English patches for some of these games. Of course, the EXE games, now anyone that speaks English can enjoy those. And there's also work being done towards getting the Rockman Dash 5 Islands game English localized. That's going to be exciting too. And if in the future we do get that English patch for Rockman Dash 5 Islands, or they get Battle Wars Tower into a playable state, I will definitely let you guys know. Oh boy, we have been on this topic for a lot longer than I anticipated. Well, there was a lot to cover, so it's fine. But anyway, 14 minutes in, let's finally get to Capcom Presents at not E3 2024. And specifically for us Mega Man fans, Capcom and Nintendo started the month of June off pretty strong with something a bit unexpected. As of June 7th, we got all 5 Game Boy Mega Man games on the Nintendo Switch Online service. That's right, that's Mega Man Dr. Wily's Revenge, Mega Man 2, 3, 4, and 5. 5 in particular is a great get because it's a fully original Mega Man game. The other 4 take elements from the previous NES titles, but 5 is a whole new story and a lot of neat things. It's a very good game. This release is notable because the last time that all 5 Game Boy games were re-released, it was on the Nintendo 3DS eShop. And I remember back then they were having a Mega May promotion for all of those games as well, and they just kind of released them week after week. However, this time, Nintendo just straight up dropped them all at once onto the Switch Online service. So first of all, hooray! They're no longer stuck on the 3DS, or on original hardware, since that's the only alternative method. Legally, that is. But here comes the downside. It's on the Switch Online service. Okay, sure, you don't need the expansion pass. That's some money saved right there, but you still have to subscribe to the online service to have access to these games, and that's not so great for preservation. Because you know, there will come a day when these servers go offline. We've seen it many times before. Heck, you can't even get the Game Boy Mega Man games on 3DS anymore, at least legally, because they took down the 3DS eShop. So in a perfect world, they really should have made like a Mega Man Legacy Collection 3 or Mega Man Side Game Legacy Collection that just has all 5 of these games together in one package. Heck, make a physical version for maximum preservation just so you can own the games, you know? And not have to go through this online service to play them. I mean, I'm glad they exist regardless, but man, that's just my preservation advocate speaking there. But as for how the games play on the Switch, it's pretty much the same as the other Game Boy games on the service. As the trailer shows, you can indeed play in the monochrome black and white color scheme, or even go for the nasty green color that the original Game Boy screen had. But if you prefer color, you can go into Game Boy Color mode, which adds some color to the games. Now, it's not perfect, it's certainly not the Super Game Boy palettes, but it's there, it works. But you know what, man? Forget all that. Move over, Nintendo. We got a better way to experience the Game Boy games. So, I don't know if the timing of this announcement was intentional, but regardless, merely 2 days after the Game Boy games dropped on NSO, Mark Max, the developer of the incredible Mega Man World 5 DX mod, announced Mega Man Mania. History lesson time. Back in 2003, Mega Man Mania was almost a real thing. It was going to be a collection of the 5 Game Boy games on the Game Boy Advance. This collection was said to have included extras, updates to the games, and colorized versions of them too. Later on, Mega Man Mania was retitled to Mega Man Anniversary Collection, and that's because it was supposed to come out alongside the console version of the Anniversary Collection. But alas, the collection was frequently delayed. Rumor had it that Capcom lost the source code to the original Game Boy games, so developer Atomic Planet had to reprogram portions from scratch. In the end, unfortunately, Mega Man Mania was indefinitely cancelled. And you know, if that rumor about the source code being lost is true, maybe that's why Capcom hasn't bothered with doing the Mega Man Mania concept ever again, and would rather just throw things on Switch Online and there you go, there's your collection. Thankfully, fans do what Cap don't, which swings us back over to the Mega Man Mania being done by Mark Max and company. This is going to be a compilation of all the DX mods for each of the Game Boy games, a couple of them that are still in development, but we'll get to that. And once all these DX mods are done, they are going to be compiled into a Game Boy Advance game titled Mega Man Mania. And it's all coming out in 2025. Exciting! Kicking things off, we obviously already have Mega Man World 5 DX from Ken Sweetgen and Mark Max. I actually live streamed this mod way back on my channel if you want to check it out. But yeah, it's Mega Man World 5, but completely colorized exactly as if it was one of the Mega Man NES games, converting it into a full-on Game Boy Color game, way further beyond than anything that has ever been done officially for this game. What's also out now is Mega Man World GBC, a colorized version of Mega Man Dr. Wily's Revenge, the first one, which has been done by Special Agent Ape. But then here come the new announcements. First up is Mega Man World 2 GBC by Special Agent Ape. Not only has it been beautifully colorized, but there are bug fixes and a toggle for a few things. New animations, corrected sprites, and the biggest question of all, what about the soundtrack? Because unfortunately, the original Mega Man 2 on Game Boy is very infamous for having a horrendous sounding soundtrack. Nothing against the compositions themselves, it's just the way that they're presented that sounds pretty bad. Thankfully, there is indeed a toggle for a redone, completely new and amazing sounding soundtrack that has been done by Hokai Forpal. So now, Mega Man World 2 looks and sounds great. Kunitsu-Gami also helped out with the graphics for this one. And in the initial Mega Man Mania trailer, it said it was just coming out this year, but in actuality, as of June 21st, Mega Man World 2 GBC Edition is now available to download. So there we go, we got 3 of the 5 games already colorized and looking awesome. The question remains, what about 3 and 4? Introducing Mega Man World 3 DX. Currently in development by Mark Max and Ken Sweegen. Much like the 5DX mod, and really all of these mods, it's going to provide improvements to the overall gameplay experience, like eliminating slowdown, and of course, another beautiful set of graphics updates and colorization. World 3 DX should be coming out this year, 2024. But wait, there's one more. Mark Max has announced that he will also be working on Mega Man World 4 DX. No gameplay or screenshots for this one, as they're still working on 3, but the end of the trailer goes on to show Mega Man Mania one more time before being followed up by a big 2025. From that, I can only presume that World 4 DX is planned for a 2025 release, along with Mania itself, since it's supposed to be a compilation of all the DX and GBC mods anyway. As for the Game Boy Advance Mega Man Mania compilation itself, Mark Max says that he may likely build a Goomba color with less options, better customized UI, and etc., but it's still too soon to decide, because obviously the priority is actually getting all of these mods done. Still, this is a really great idea, and I can't wait for it all to come together. Having all the games colorized alone has been a huge pipe dream for years and years, but to finally see Mega Man Mania in the flesh, not officially, but fan-made, but regardless, just seeing Mania come back as a real thing after all these years, all these decades. It's just unreal, man. Thank you to everyone involved with these projects, and really to the entire Mega Man fan community out there doing all these amazing things in Capcom's stead, while we're still to this day waiting on any new game announcement. Heck, make a good Mega Man Level 3, that's another massive fan game that just came out during the month of June. With over 200 unique stages, 300 mini stages created by the community, and so much more, that's just a crazy amount of content. So again, thank you to everybody. It's really people like you that are keeping the series burning alive. But for now, it's back to Capcom Presents. Around the time that the Mega Man Game Boy games dropped on NSO, that was also the debut of Summer Game Fest 2024 on June 7th. Leading up to this event, Capcom was gassing up their announcements perhaps too much. You see, they were sending invites out to the press, such as Kit and Krista, and the invite says, "Get ready for the ultimate showtime." Notably, Capcom hasn't sent out invites quite like this since the time that they did the Mega Man 30th anniversary stream, you know, the one where they announced Mega Man 11. Furthermore, right before the show, Capcom creators put out a survey where they say, "There's a ton of surprises in store that we know will get you excited." On the Capcom Creators Discord, they said, Capcom has an exciting lineup in store that you won't want to miss. And finally, after the show, the press release for the Summer Game Fest showing for Capcom says, Capcom delivers a show to remember. A show to remember, huh? And that combined with the Mega Man Game Boy NSO announcement the day before. Not gonna lie, some of us were like, oh crap, something actually gonna happen at Summer Games Fest? Obviously the answer is no in terms of Mega Man stuff because we're not allowed to have good things. But okay, Capcom, I hear ya. You're really gassing this up. Clearly you got something very exciting in store. Alright, let's see it. What you got? We got the second Monster Hunter Wilds trailer in about a couple of weeks span because there was another one at the PlayStation State of Play earlier on. We got a release date announcement for Kunitsu-Gami Path of the Goddess. Pretty neat. And we got a DLC announcement for Street Fighter 6 that actually features Fatal Fury. Wow, that's unexpected. Now that's pretty hype, I will admit. But that's all, folks. Now listen, if you really love Monster Hunter or Street Fighter, I'm sure this was a great show for you. I'm not going to deny you that. But looking in from the outside, just at the general announcements, all three of these were games that we already knew about. And when you got Capcom being like, we got a lineup you won't want to miss, it's going to be exciting, a show to remember, it really sounds more like they were going to announce a new game, like something we haven't seen before. That's really the vibe that many of us were getting from that, and it just ended up being updates to previously announced games, which is perfectly fine, but why all the hype? What was the marketing team thinking there? I don't know. But yeah, clearly they need to dial down the hype a bit. Like, I know it's their job to get people excited, but maybe they got people a little too excited for their own good. Thankfully, I think we do see later on that they do learn their lesson. But before that, we gotta get to the next big Capcom showing, which was the Nintendo Direct. And it's funny, you could tell that Nintendo wanted literally nothing to do with the Summer Game Fest because they waited a full week after the Summer Game Fest to finally do the Direct on June 18th. And in my humble opinion, it's perfectly understandable that Capcom marketing hyped up the Summer Game Fest because Monster Hunter and Street Fighter are their biggest franchises. I get it, I really do. But in my humble opinion, I think they should have saved the gassing up for the Nintendo Direct because in terms of new announcements, whoo boy, they took us for a ride. We got announcements for 2 new collections. Oh come on, Capcom and their collections again? Well, they're not just any collections, these are 2 bombshell announcements for their respective communities. Big frickin' deals. I'll start with the Ace Attorney Investigations collection, which includes AAI 1 and 2. Aside from the updated chibi graphics and the orchestra music, this release is notable because we have never gotten Ace Attorney Investigations 2 in the West. The first one came out to English-speaking audiences to little fanfare. It didn't sell that well, so Capcom unfortunately ended up skipping on localizing 2. And that was a dang shame because I can attest to this myself because I played the fan translation that came out years later, but Ace Attorney Investigations 2 is straight up like one of the top Ace Attorney games of all time. It is amazing. Investigations 1 is pretty good too, but with Investigations 2 they really stepped up their game. And it provides a lot of important backstory and character development for Edgeworth, such as what happened with his dad right before DL6. It's really cool and a little bit of a monkey's paw moment, but we will have to get used to the new localized names compared to the fan translation, which has completely different names. But you know, that's a small price to pay to finally have a localized Investigations 2 after 13 years. At least that's how long I've been waiting. I still can't believe it's real. But I'm sure that's what Capcom fighting fans are saying right now with the Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection. That's right. At long last, Capcom has presented. So a little backstory leading up to this announcement. A few years back, there was a free Marvel vs. Capcom 2 movement that was made popular by Maximilian Dude. And much like with many preservation movements, it was just, Capcom, let's bring MVC2 back. It was a pretty good game. And before now, it was stuck on the Dreamcast or in arcades. There was a arcade 1-up of Marvel vs. Capcom that did include 2. But you know, you gotta pay hundreds of dollars for that one, so it's not quite the same as having a home console release. So yeah, other than what I mentioned, not much else. And there was one recent year where MVC2 showed up at EVO, so there's clearly a lot of love for the game, but not much support from Capcom themselves, and really it's most likely because of licensing. Considering that Marvel is owned by Disney these days, and even back when Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite came out, there was the whole controversy that there was no X-Men characters because of the licensing nightmare it was to get them in. And yeah, that was the basis behind the free MVC2 movement. It was just, Capcom, get your act together, get this licensing figured out and bring the series back. Because at the time, MVC was dead. The last release was Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. And although I'm incredibly happy that Mega Man X himself finally got into one of these games, there was still a lot of controversy surrounding it at the time, from the graphics to the plot. There was the special edition that included the Infinity Stones, but more like the Infinity Eggs though, because they really were just like basically Easter eggs. What? I mean, besides that, it's still a fun game. Like, mechanically, it's still a good game. There's just a lot of outside problems going on around it. And unfortunately, in the end, Infinite didn't do too hot, and all their DLC plans did not go as planned, to say the least. But I guess we had to fall so far to be so frickin' back. Introducing the Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection Arcade Classics. This is going to include X-Men, Children of the Atom, Marvel Superheroes, X-Men vs. Street Fighter, Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter, the beat 'em up The Punisher, Marvel vs. Capcom Clash of Superheroes, and of course, Marvel vs. Capcom 2 New Age of Heroes. So yeah, it looks like they finally figured out whatever licensing issues they needed to in order to re-release these games at long last. Because, side note, MVC2 was re-released on the Xbox 360 and PS3 I believe, but I personally had it on the Xbox 360. But it was later delisted because, you know, licenses run out, and when they do, bye-bye. And that's something good to note about this most recent collection as well. As great as it is to have it back, we could lose it once again once the licenses run out. Thankfully, they are doing physical versions for this. It's coming out on Switch, PS4, and PC. The Switch and PS4 versions in particular are getting physical editions. So I highly recommend that for this particular collection, even if you always go digital, no, you really should get this physically. Because back in the day on the Xbox 360, we didn't have that option to go physically. Once it got delisted, it was gone. Unless you already have it downloaded. But thankfully now we can actually own something physically and have it forever, even if it goes away digitally. Anyway, if you haven't guessed by now, the reason why we're giving this game such a big spotlight is because Mega Man is in it. That's right, the Blue Bomber along with Roll and Tron are all there and accounted for in these games, specifically the Marvel vs. Capcom games. And you can even see in the key art behind the epic handshake with Ryu and Cyclops, there's Mega Man and the others right there in the key art. Really cool. And in all the promotional material, you can spot the concept art for the Mega Man stage in MVC1. Which brings us to what is new in this collection. Well, obviously you can't bring back these classic fighting games and not have online, and that's exactly what they've done here. Not only will there be casual matches, ranked matches, and custom matches, but they're having rollback netcode, baby. Now it just makes me even more salty that they didn't have rollback in the Battle Network Legacy Collection, but I digress. It's always great to see. Even the Punisher's getting online with a online co-op and spectating mode. Oh, but there is one very unfortunate similarity between this and the Battle Network Legacy Collection, and that is the fact that in the small text you can find it says crossplay between platforms is not supported. Yep, once again, just like with Battle Network, you're gonna have to buy all the versions if you want to play with everybody. And yeah, that sucks. On that note, there's no Xbox version, so oof, that sucks for Xbox owners as well. I can only guess the reason why Capcom has been skipping Xbox lately with these collections is I guess they don't think it really sells very well on Xbox, particularly their more niche games. Unfortunate, but kind of understandable that is indeed the case. Then again, is MVC really considered niche? Mega Man is one thing, but this not coming to Xbox is kind of surprising. Anyway, for even more new features, there's going to be a high score challenge mode where you can compete with other players for the highest score under set rules. And there's a co-op one for the Punisher as well. Obviously, you can try to get up there in the leaderboards. They even went through the trouble of adding a training mode for the fighting games. That's pretty neat. They included the marquee cards for the original arcade releases that you can look at anytime during gameplay. Quality of life features include display filters, quick saves, which basically act like save states, so now you can cheese the single player modes, and of course they got achievements. They got one button specials, difficulty settings. Obviously every Capcom soundtrack has to have an art gallery and a music player. The art gallery will have documents, posters, and instruction cards. And of course that's where we can see the Mega Man stage concept artwork. That's so cool. But wait, there's more, because some of these games are going to have unlockable characters that weren't there in the original arcade releases. In Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter, Cyber Akuma is now playable. Look at that Terminator looking mug. In Marvel Superheroes, Dr. Doom, Thanos, and Anita are now playable. In X-Men Children of the Atom, Juggernaut and Magneto are now playable. And in MVC1, they say a number of stages have been altered. Whatever that means. Although there is one remaining question specifically regarding Mega Man. You see, in the home console releases of MVC1, if you complete the single player campaign using Mega Man, the ending sequence is literally a Mega Man victory weapon get screen where he gets the magnetic shockwave weapon. It's a cool reference to his games, but not only that, you could even use that magnetic shockwave weapon during fights after doing this. And man, that is so true to Mega Man's character. The question is, since this was a home console exclusive thing, is this going to be brought into the collection? Oh man, I hope so. The Marvel vs. Capcom collection should be coming out this year. They haven't said when just yet, but they said this year. Just make sure you get the physical edition, okay? But yeah, again, this is a freaking bombshell announcement for the fighting game community. The online reactions to this during the Nintendo Direct was absolutely insane to watch, and funny too. You can definitely see how big of a freaking deal this announcement is to the people that care about it. For a while, the fighting game division of Capcom was going through a dark age. Infinite didn't do too well. Street Fighter V had its share of problems too, but now that Street Fighter 6 is out, and from what I hear, people really like that game, Marvel vs. Capcom is finally back. And if this collection does well, and they follow this up with Marvel vs. Capcom 4, or whatever comes after Infinite, maybe we can finally say that, yeah, Capcom's back in terms of fighting games. Let's hope if MVC4 does happen, that they finally figured out the issues with the X-Men and actually have them in from the start this time. After the Nintendo Direct, things were quiet for a while until June 26, where we got another pair of bombshell announcements, specifically for survival horror fans. Yes, one of them is Resident Evil again, but not just any Resident Evil announcement. It turns out that GOG has gotten permission from Capcom so they can re-release the original PC ports of the 3 classic Resident Evil titles, but this time these PC ports just work from the get-go, no fuss. And that was a big problem before with the OG PC releases. They were quite broken on Windows 10 and Windows 11, basically meaning you had to get fan patches in order to fix up the games and make them look better. The main difference with these new PC releases from GOG is that they do support modern controllers right off the bat, which is great, and the intro cutscene in Resident Evil 1, which is the only game that's out right now, is completely uncensored. Other than that, they did some little fixes here and there, but otherwise it's just the vanilla PC port with a few extra options like upscaling the internal resolution of the 3D models. Other than that though, it's definitely nothing super groundbreaking. It's definitely not going to look like the Rebirth fan mod. These are just the 3 games preserved as they originally were. And I know hardcore Resident Evil fans wanted more from an official release from Capcom, but it is a big deal just because people have been asking for a Resident Evil Classics collection for a long time, and it just never happened until basically now. Unfortunately, this is just GOG, and it's not coming to Steam, at least not yet. But in this instance, it's better than nothing, I suppose. Thankfully, the GOG release does appear to work with the Rebirth mod, and soon the Bio-Rando mod, so you can do some randos with that. So now you can legally support the game and use the mods. And really, I think that's the key thing with this. If you do want to see the classic Resident Evil games hit console or even Steam, the best thing you could really do is support these GOG releases, and if they sell really well, most likely that money is going to talk really loud to Capcom and convince them to finally put these on more platforms, hopefully looking even better too. Who knows? The other unexpected announcement was they are doing a remaster of Dead Rising 1, which the original game was famously headed up by KJ Inafune. From the looks of the trailer, it looks pretty much like the game that you remember, but the graphics have received a new coat of paint. It shall be known as Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster, and they say 2024 in the trailer, so maybe it's coming out this year? Guess we'll see. Because right after this, they announced the Capcom NEXT event. Yes, it's Capcom Showcase with yet another new name. I think they've gone through like 3 different names for these by now. But anyway, here's where I mentioned earlier that they seem to have learned their lesson from the Summer Games Fest fiasco marketing wise. Because with this Capcom NEXT, they have announced that it's going to be on July 1st, which is actually the day that I'm recording this. But I think I can safely skip this because, like I said, they learned their lesson. They said, hey, we're going to have Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster, Resident Evil 7 for iPhone, iPad, and Mac, and we're also going to have news on Kunitsu-Gami Path of the Goddess. I believe that's all, folks. No, really. They say, note, this event will not include news or updates for other titles. So this time at least, they are setting the proper expectations, which kudos to them, honestly. That's good. So now, if you want more details on these specific games, you should definitely watch it. If you don't care, skip it. And that's it. Because once again, I understand that when it comes to marketing, your job is to get people excited and to get them to tune into your stuff. But at the same time, you're going to get people mad if you make them sit through a 2-hour show like the Summer Game Fest just to have updates on previously announced titles. They were good updates, mind you, but since they weren't new game announcements, they really needed to set the proper expectations. And thankfully with this Capcom NEXT, they have. Hi, ShadowRock from the future here. I've watched the Capcom NEXT, and it turns out I shouldn't have skipped it. So like past ShadowRock said, they did indeed show up Kunitsu-Gami Path of the Goddess, along with an Okami collab and a demo. They showed off a bunch of Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster, Resident Evil 7 on Apple devices, and a little something extra at the end that they didn't hint at before. So in a way they over-delivered. But let's back up a little bit to Dead Rising Deluxe Remastered, because it turns out there's something a little Mega Man in there. Now, it's been no secret for years and years that Dead Rising has had a pretty solid connection to Mega Man in the form of all the costumes that Frank West would get. Frank's Mega Man X suit in particular has always been a long-standing fan favorite among his arsenal. The X suit is even a costume for Frank's appearance in Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. And in Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, he gets a Proto Man suit. And hey, he's also pulled off a not too bad looking roll casket in the past. Let's not forget the Servbot head that appears a lot in his games and even the fighting game appearances too. And that's likely because the director of Dead Rising, Yoshinori Kawano, was also the director on Mega Man Legends. Oh, and not to mention Keiji Inafune himself was the producer of Dead Rising. So yeah, Frank is already an established Mega Man cosplayer at this point. And what do you know, he's about to get even more costumes to play around with. Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster is going to come out on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, and Steam. They're going to put out the digital version first on September 19th, and the physical release will come later in November. The digital version will be $50, but if you go $10 higher, you get the digital deluxe edition, which gets you a huge assortment of costume and background music packs, including the Willamette Parkview Mall pack, Resident Evil Heroes and Villains pack, the Capcom Fighters pack, and, of course, the Mega Man pack. The Mega Man pack comes with a whopping 3 costumes, accompanied by some background music from their respective games. The Trombone costume from Mega Man Legends is probably not too surprising considering he did Roll Casket in the past. This one comes with the Flutter vs. Gesellschaft music from Legends. But more surprisingly, we even got Mega Man Battle Network representation here, with the Mega Man EXE and Lan Hikari costumes. Mega Man comes with Running Through the Cyber World, while Lan Hikari comes with Hometown. I presume the BN1 version. So there you go, there's your Mega Man news for the Capcom NEXT presentation. I do get it, it really sucks that the only times Mega Man is brought up recently is for costumes, skins, collabs, random drops on NSO. Heck, I have even mentioned the collabs with Exoprimal and Street Fighter 6. Yeah, they added some costumes from the Mega Man series into Street Fighter 6 for a little collab celebration thing. Meanwhile, the Exoprimal collab was quite a bit meatier. Quint and I covered it on the channel here on the live stream. You get some exosuit costumes featuring Mega Man, Airman, and Yellow Devil. And speaking of the big yellow guy, there's an entire raid boss battle event where you fight the Yellow Devil, and boy, he was actually pretty difficult. But we got a W or 2 in there. I had never played Exoprimal up until the Mega Man event came out, but I gotta say, while the game may not have been worth the initial asking price, if you get it on a sale, it's a lot of fun. And it's probably the closest you're going to get to a new Dino Crisis, unless Capcom listens to the results of the Super Elections poll that we will cover in just a little bit here. Well anyways, yep, Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster once again is going to be out September 19th. Other than the massively improved graphics, it's going to have a number of quality of life improvements such as auto-saving. Frank can now move while aiming, and that's going to be a very nice one for people who have played the original because that was pretty jank. They added some filters to the photo mode. NPC and survivor interactions are now fully voiced. They have new and improved NPC behaviors, better controls, and a fine-tuned user interface. So overall, if you're a fan of the series, it looks like a pretty good time to jump back in, or even to start for the first time. My personal history of the Dead Rising series was I did try Dead Rising 1 on the Xbox 360, but I didn't really know what I was doing. I think I died a lot, so I ended up dropping it. I have more experience with Dead Rising 2 off the record from my times running through it with Hero Azure. At the time, we were planning a co-op let's play of the game, but in the end, we didn't upload anything. So it was a fun time. Definitely the highlight for me has been running through hordes of zombies of a bunch of crazy and unique weapons, and of course all the Mega Man Easter eggs that are sprinkled throughout these games. So I would say if you're looking for a mix of comedy with your horror, some arcadey beat 'em up action with insane weapon combinations, this one might be up your alley. At the very end of the Capcom NEXT presentation, Resident Evil 7 director Nakanishi hit us with the One More Thing announcement.
We're making a new Resident Evil.
Nakanishi, that's not news. Capcom's always making a Resident Evil. Well, anyway, jokes aside, all that Nakanishi says about this new title is that he didn't know what to do after 7, but now he has found it and it feels substantial. Rumor has it that this title that Nakanishi is teasing was supposed to be the real Resident Evil 8, but the title got rebooted, had to be pushed back. Thankfully, alongside this, they were also working on Resident Evil Village, so they took that game and made that Resident Evil 8. Notably, Nakanishi did not direct Resident Evil Village, so it seems like this next one is going to be his true next game. Rumor also has it that this Resident Evil 9 may be open world. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, I guess Capcom simply couldn't end this not E3 season without letting us know that yes, they are working on a new Resident Evil. Don't freak out, guys. Or maybe more specifically, not to freak out the investors. Yeah, it's just really funny to me that, you know, for Resident Evil of all things, they can have a dev come out and casually drop the existence of a new game with almost zero context. You know how many other series would kill to have that? Not to mention Mega Man fans? Granted, there was this one interview with Tsuchiya saying that they've already decided on the next Mega Man title, but that was not long after Mega Man 11 came out, and it has been years since then. But yeah, that's what people have been asking for all this time, just the knowledge that something exists so that they know that the series isn't dead. Of course, that's never going to happen, but it's funny that it did for Resident Evil. You know, one of the series that they're always making around the clock. But that's enough of my ranting. Let's move on. Putting aside the lack of Mega Man stuff, I think overall Capcom fans ate pretty good this month. You got 2 bombshell collection announcements that really made their respective communities extremely happy. You got a bunch of great updates on existing games. Dead Rising is getting a remaster. The classic versions of Resident Evil are coming back. Yeah, it's not too bad. As for Mega Man stuff, we still got the Game Boy games on NSO. And hey, Marvel vs. Capcom can count as a Mega Man thing too, sure. But as for new games, I'm not too sure. It's really hard to say. Well, there is one new statement from Capcom regarding this topic. Around June 20th, Capcom held their shareholder meeting, and they did address the topic of new Mega Man games. Don't get your hopes up. Obviously, they're not going to announce a new game at a shareholder meeting, but regardless, here's Protodude sharing a note of what they said. Regarding a new title, Capcom mentioned something to the effect of, it will appear in various forms, and the IP remains very important. This is kind of similar to the statement they had a year or 2 ago, which boils down to, hey, we're working on it, okay? I don't know what the various forms comment is supposed to mean. It could be anywhere from a bombshell like, oh, we're getting multiple new games, yeah right. Or it could be as small as, oh hey, Mega Man's gonna be in this crossover. Also, he's in this game as a guest character. Or it could go even smaller like, oh hey, here's some merchandise, have fun. Or maybe all the above, who knows really. There is one more way we can kind of get into Capcom's head and try to figure out what may be in our future though. And that is with the results of the Capcom Super Elections. Yep, they had this big super poll that they had on the Capcom Town website back a while ago. And as of June 11th, we have the results. If you remember, one of the big questions from that survey that was very interesting was Capcom asking players what kind of remakes would they want to see. And to be fair, a lot of the choices pretty much covered every Capcom franchise under the sun. Yet, among them, there was indeed a question about remakes of Mega Man 1, 2, and 3. Well, let's see how that went. So we had 254,148 fans that voted in the Super Election. From there, let's just go through these results, shall we, and see what we can find. It looks like the number 1 character was Dante from the Devil May Cry series. I mean, that's a good pick, he's pretty cool. And the number 1 title, the fan favorite Capcom game of all time, was Devil May Cry 5. Interesting. It seems like the people really want DMC to come back. Now we come to the 10 questions that Capcom asked. And I'll say there's a lot of data going on here. We got the results categorized between the world and Japan, male and female, age groups. Oh boy, alright, let's get started. Question 1 was, which Capcom games do you like the best? As previously mentioned, that was Devil May Cry 5 at number 1, 15,000 votes. Dino Crisis of all things came in at number 2 with 10,000. I mean, I think this is really people just trying to get Dino Crisis up there so they'll make a sequel already. I don't blame them. Yeah, I remember there was a big movement for Dino Crisis during the survey. Resident Evil 4, the remake, came in at number 3 with 9,000 votes. And out of the top 10 here, there's no Mega Man games. None whatsoever. But if we go down to the world results, we can see the original Mega Man X, 4,000 votes, number 10. Meanwhile, in the Land of the Sun, they seem to like Mega Man Legends a lot, because it got number 8 at 1,071 votes. Moving on to question 2, who is your favorite Capcom character? Dante, with the 26,000 votes, got number 1, followed by Leon Scott Kennedy at 23,000 votes. And then there's a huge gap as we go down to number 3, which is actually, hey, look at that, it's our boy X. Nice. But yeah, look at that gap. Like, Leon at number 2 got double the votes. Yeah, but shoot, more than double the votes over X. That's a big oof. But still, our boy's in number 3. It's pretty cool. Look at that, he beat Zero. What the heck? Remember when Zero was supposed to be like the guy that overshadows X in all of his games? He even got the star in his own games. But nope, X said, ain't having none of that. I'm still more popular than you, Zero. Suck it, boy. There's also Classic Mega Man coming in at number 7 at 8,000 votes. Oh hey, and there's Phoenix Wright right behind him. Over in Japan, Ace Attorney scored really high under Dante. Apparently Phoenix Wright is more popular than Leon in Japan. But then there's Mega Man at 6 and Zero at 7. Oh hey, and there's Land Hikari and Mega Man EXE at 9. Nice. Oh shoot, we gotta back up a bit. I missed something big. So they have the top 10 favorite Capcom game series. So out of the whole world, the top 10 Capcom game series, Resident Evil got number 1 in the world, 42,000 votes. But look at that, the runner-up is Mega Man at 29,000 votes. It's still quite a gap between Mega Man and Resident Evil, but hey, still the runner-up, we'll take those. Devil May Cry got number 3 at 25. Surprised that's not higher considering the other results. And yeah, you can see once again, people are really trying to gas up Dino Crisis because they got number 5 at 15,000, right under Monster Hunter, and in between Ace Attorney. Over in Japan, Mega Man is only slightly second to Monster Hunter, surprisingly enough. Like, that is an extremely small gap. Mega Man could have easily been number 1 in Japan, although in reality, you gotta keep in mind of these results that this is only a small fraction of most people playing games worldwide. Millions of people, in fact. So it's really hard to say how accurate these results are, and Capcom will actually take this all very seriously, but we'll see. Capcom has been known for taking surveys like this to heart. Anyways, let's go back to question number 3, shall we? What do you look for in Capcom games? Most people said exhilarating gameplay, followed by unique and attractive characters, and unpredictable and exciting storylines. Well, I will say Mega Man definitely has exhilarating gameplay down. Yeah, I would call some Mega Man characters unique and attractive. Storylines, that really depends on the series. Number 4, what image do you have of Capcom? Creative spirit, strong originality, amazing creators treasury. I mean, yeah, sure. I could have sworn it was either this question or another one where there was a choice for not enough new sequels or along those lines. I'm surprised I'm not seeing that here. I guess people didn't want to be rude. Question 5. Are there any Capcom game series, including spin-off games, that you would like to see get a sequel or new game? This is a big one for us. Well, As you can see, people really want Dino Crisis because that got number 1 at 80,000. But thankfully we're good because Rockman Mega Man came in at number 2, 63,000 votes, just slightly above Devil May Cry. But yeah, you can definitely see that big movement for Dino Crisis kicking in just because of the gap it has between Mega Man. Well, hey, that's still a good result. That's a good result indeed. Hopefully they will take that seriously for once. Looking at the other top 10 contenders, Resident Evil got number 4. I mean, it's a popular series, that's understandable. But you know what's really funny? There's no Monster Hunter here. Not on the top 10. Oh man. I think the Westerners are sick and tired of Monster Hunter. But honestly, a lot of these are neck and neck as well. It could have been anyone's game after the top 4. Like Ace Attorney is only 5,000 behind Resident Evil, even though it's number 8. Let's see how these series fared in Japan. It looks like Japan really wants a new Ace Attorney. Hey, I want one too. Hopefully they do Ace Attorney 7 after Investigations Collection comes out. And it looks like Monster Hunter beat out Mega Man in Japan. Mega Man's only number 3. But the results are pretty neck and neck overall. Okay, at the halfway point. Question 6. Is there a game you would like to see completely remade with the latest technology, including character design and story direction? This is that big question I mentioned before with the Mega Man 1, 2, and 3 remake. And well, the results are actually really funny. The number 1 choice was not in here. So either people didn't want a remake at all, or they just didn't see anything interesting in here for them. But if we have to go on the actual choices, Onimusha got up there at number 2. Breath of Fire 1, 2, and 3 is the runner-up, followed by the Mega Man 1, 2, and 3 remake at number 4. 31,000 votes, close to 32,000 even, which is only like a few votes behind Breath of Fire, so Mega Man is definitely like in the top 3, aside from the people that voted not in here. Not gonna lie, I'm sad the Ace Attorney one didn't get as many votes, but it is what it is. Does this mean we're gonna see a Mega Man 1, 2, and 3 remake? I mean, I don't know. At the end of the day, none of these results really guarantee a physical product. It's just an idea. Oh, here's a comment under Mega Man. Please make a new Mega Man game, or maybe a remake of the old ones. I'm super happy the Legacy Collections, but something new would be great. Well, there you go. Capcom be listening, boys. Oh, of course, the Japanese results. So, looks like Mega Man 1, 2, and 3 scored number 6, 4,500 votes. And most people still voted not in here. Rival Schools got number 2 in Japan, followed by Breath of Fire. And Ace Attorney actually got above Mega Man. Let's go. Alright, question number 7. What was the first Capcom game you played? Hey yo! Mega Man is in the first place in this one. 13,000 votes. Followed by Street Fighter 2 and Resident Evil. Really? Resident Evil was the first Capcom game a lot of people played? And hey yo, number 4, Mega Man X is the first game. That's a pretty good first game. Mega Man 2 is only number 5. And both of these are actually close behind Resident Evil. Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney for the first game. That's a pretty cool one. RE4 number 7, Resident Evil 2 at number 8, Dino Crisis at 9. Now how many people can actually say Dino Crisis was their very first Capcom game? I mean, sound off in the comments if it is. That would be interesting. But I think I'll chalk it up to the Dino Crisis movement at work again. Let's see, over in Japan, Street Fighter 2 got number 1, followed by Phoenix Wright, Ace Attorney, Ghosts and Goblins, that's interesting. Mega Man 1, 2, and X, Resident Evil 1942, Sun, and Street Fighter 2 Turbo. Number 8, which Capcom game has influenced you the most? We got RE4 at number 1, Devil May Cry 3 at number 2, and the OG Resident Evil at 3. Yeah, some solid choices. Followed by Ace Attorney, and going down. God, every time I see Dino Crisis, I can't help but laugh. But Mega Man X got number 8, 6,000 votes, 6,800 votes. That's not terrible. We got a Mega Man comment under here. Your characters have changed my life in a way that is difficult to put into words. I went on my first adventures alongside Neto and Rockman EXE. Oh, let's go! We got Battle Network representation. When I was just 4 years old, though then I knew them by different names. Those feelings have since inspired me to live a life surrounded by technology and to be a scientist on the forefront of chemical engineering. Thank you for building my childhood. Oh man, that's pretty crazy. In fact, this story sounds familiar to like someone in our community. I feel like I've heard something like that before. I wonder, but anyway. Number 9, do you have a complaint you would like to share with Capcom? Oh, this was the question I was thinking of. Okay, here we go. Number 1 was reboot previous IPs. Yep, that really is the big one. Look how big of a gap this is. 103,000 votes. Honestly, I'm just glad everybody agrees. Number 2 was no complaints, keep up the good work. Oh, come on guys. Number 3 was slow release of new number titles. I do agree with that one too. I mean, in the 2000s you could argue that they were too fast with new number titles, but yeah, these days, come on guys. Come on. We also got not a good communicator, not listed here but many. Too many sales, not only sequels but new IP games as well. Becoming very mellow recently. Poor selection of goods that they also sell out quickly. The design is something not very cool. Well, that's just rude. Capcom makes some good designs. Let's see if there's any Mega Man comments here. Oh, this is funny. Under Japan, I don't hate you. Just because I have some complaints, that doesn't mean I hate you. Don't get the wrong idea. That's too funny. Let's see, the marketing is bad. Communicate more. Slow to release new titles. Oh, here's Mega Man. Capcom is a company that regularly produces amazing games, influencing people in various ways and loved by fans worldwide. However, lately there's been an impression that you're too slow to release new titles for their major franchises. Take Mega Man for example. It feels like it's been neglected, right? Whether it's a sequel or a concluding chapter, there are many people eagerly waiting. Do your best. Here, brother. Alright, to you now for the final question. We welcome all your support to Capcom. Yes. This question was weird even back then. Like, what were you supposed to say here? So, yeah, in this case, yes indeed. At the end it says, thank you to everyone for all the votes and comments. You will continue to work hard to receive your support, so we appreciate your continued encouragement. Thank you. We received numerous thank yous in many different languages. Nice. Well, that's pretty much the results. I would say overall, Mega Man fared pretty well. There's definitely a clear message here that the people do want Mega Man. Oh, and Dino Crisis. People really want Dino Crisis. Perhaps even more than they want Mega Man. That's funny. But big question remains, does Capcom look at this and say, holy crap, if we're not working on a Mega Man game right now, we need to get started quick. Well, hopefully that's the hope, right? Alright, we're winding things down here now, so we're going to head back over to the video game department to discuss updates on 2 mobile games we're very familiar with ties to Mega Man. Most excitingly is TEPPEN. Previously we saw TEPPEN introduce Mega Man Battle Network. Even Rockman X Dive is in there now. Zero got a Zero Nightmare skin recently too. So what's next for TEPPEN? Well, it's the 5th anniversary, so they're coming out with a new card pack titled The Desperate Jailbreak. Once again, we're getting a bunch of new Mega Man X themed cards, and I guess someone on the team really likes the Mega Buster collab with Devil May Cry 5 because we're getting cards with references to that collab as well. Yep, many of the cards here feature Nero from Devil May Cry holding the Mega Buster, the same one from DMC5. Oh wait, there's more. It turns out that Iris from Mega Man X4 is making her playable debut as a EX skin over the Hero Feline. She comes fully voiced, even in English, even though the English actress hasn't been announced yet. Her special is a callback to X4 where she's in trouble during the intro stage and her brother Colonel comes to save the day. Yeah, Iris's character in TEPPEN follows all the tropes that she's known for in X4, but what you gonna do? Overall, this was a very cool update. I really like that TEPPEN is digging deep into these references with the Devil May Cry collab, and of course adding in more series. On the flip side of things, what's not so cool is that, yep, it finally happened. NebulaJoy has announced that the global server for Mega Man X Dive is reaching end of service on July 30th. And they posted this on June 30th, so it's only a 1 month heads up. unlike the Taiwan server that I remember giving us at least 2 or 3 months heads up that it was happening. Here's what NebulaJoy had to say on Twitter X. Hello fellow hunters, it's been an absolute pleasure playing with you all, and we have nothing but appreciation for the last 3 wonderful years we shared together. But all good things must come to an end, sadly. Thus, we are announcing the end of service on July 30th. All purchasing options will be deactivated shortly, although they don't give a date for this, and the server will shut down on July 30th, 2024. This was an inevitable situation, but it is interesting. Back when the Taiwan server announced end of service, NebulaJoy was quick to get on Twitter X to tell us that the global server was going to stay up, and I quote, indefinitely, even though a logical person would see the motherland game going down and presume that all other versions would be going away too. Especially for a gacha game like this, once you see the motherland game go away, it's time to stop spending money on it, because it's just going to be a waste. I sincerely hope that nobody was wailing on this game right before they announced this EOS. Ooh, that would suck. But despite this, NebulaJoy promised that they're going to keep their version going strong, that they were going to add new content even beyond what the Taiwan server had. I don't know how you do that without Capcom's permission. And more recently, in February 22nd of this year, Rockman Corner reported that in a recent livestream, ZeroX, a representative from NebulaJoy, shared insights on the game's future. ZeroX stated, "We are in talks right now with Capcom to extend the online version. I'm 99% sure they are going to say yes." Emphasizing the mutual interest in success, ZeroX added, "They're not going to let us fail because it makes no sense. If this game ever gets shut down, they do not benefit at all. If it keeps running, they benefit. Everybody benefits." Well, in the end, as far as the new content goes, all they really added was S-rank versions of Mega Man Zero and Massimo. Other than that, most of the updates have been catching up with Taiwan, adding buffs to a bunch of characters. Some of these buffs, from my eyes, looking almost too overpowered, and doing a bunch of reruns, but nothing substantial as far as something actually new. And there you have it. Even though they swore up and down that shutting down this game would only be a detriment to Capcom, it looks like Capcom did not agree with that line of reasoning, and it's shutting down. I just don't think Capcom had any interest whatsoever in keeping Dive alive, as their mobile strategy is shifting lately. When Dive first came out, they were really targeting that Chinese mobile market that was huge. But now, Capcom is seeing more success in India. Not only that, but they are transitioning their mobile strategy from making original titles like Dive to doing ports of their existing titles, which is exactly why they're putting all their Resident Evil games on Apple devices as we speak. They see porting their big home console titles over to mobile devices as more profitable than putting in the development cost to make brand new titles specifically for mobile. And not to mention the cost of running the servers, I'm sure. Moreover, X-Dive Offline is a thing now. Instead of relying on microtransactions, that's a game you can just buy. So in the long run, as Global starts to lose steam, X-Dive Offline is going to end up more profitable. And I believe those are the big reasons why Capcom ended up shutting down Global in the end. And hey, maybe that's why we haven't heard anything about that rumored Mega Man Bow Network mobile game either. Maybe they just quietly canceled that one. Because again, it seems that Capcom is more interested in porting their home console games over to Apple right now. As for Dive Global itself, I could go on for hours and hours about NebulaJoy's handling of this game, and especially all of the weird ads they have had over the years. Some of those ads being false advertising. But I decided instead, why don't we hear from people that actually played the game? What did they think about it? So, I put out a tweet on Twitter X asking people to give their good and bad thoughts on their overall experiences with Dive Global. And well, let's hear about what some of these people had to say. Rock Miyabi said, "The stream codes and freebies sent to players that weren't in the Taiwan version were certainly nice things to look forward to often. But there were also little things like event points not registering, don't remember many Dr. Light Labs running, some things just lacking more." Turquoise Gold Scrapper said, "I had fun with it. I liked being able to play as different characters like Marino, but the game really went downhill after Rockman Next Dive closed and NebulaJoy was on their own. they buffed characters randomly, and PvP was a mess with some of them more broken than Next Dive Armor X. That's a yikers right there. Ericsil said, "So, as a game, X-Dive is alright, but the way NebulaJoy managed the global version, absolutely horrendous. Zero X was the type to get caught with his entire butt out, and double down on his questionable decisions. I could explain at length, but character limit." Chris said, "I played for years, led a guild that's currently in 3rd place. So many thoughts. Mainly, they dropped the ball, both NebulaJoy and Capcom. This game had so much potential, but various decisions doomed it from the start." Alinix said, "It was really fun at the beginning, but it started to fall apart once I became aware of how things worked in the main version. Being years behind in content, wrong banners that just stay there until next Wednesday, stream codes expiring fast, many little things soured all else." Joel said, "From the experience, it was pretty good, I'd say. The game had an extremely rough start, the weird ads, being behind massively from the Taiwan version, etc. I had a blast waking up every morning for work to check for login awards. Just sucks global version couldn't sync with PC." Yeah, that was a thing too. Global never got a Steam port, but only Taiwan did. On top of that, Capcom just kind of ignored NebulaJoy's existence throughout this whole thing. Capcom USA certainly advertised the Taiwan version when the Steam version came out, but no mentions of global anywhere. It's weird, like, why would you work with these guys if you were just going to ignore their version anyway? That's another reason why I'm not surprised this EOS came sooner than later. Zuzamblemon said, "As a veteran from both Rockman and Mega Man X Dive, I will say that Global had a few bit bruises along the way. NebulaJoy did not help with the lack of communication and transparency with the fanbase. PvP felt like a gamble. Either newcomers or elite whales will wreck you up in a match." Gunvolt Gamer said, "As someone who has played since day one, they did good at first, but as time went on they fumbled hard. After they got the go-ahead to do what they wanted to do within reason, they didn't add much and buffed everyone to an insane degree. P.S. Rumor they are doing a Next Dive 2. Well, the ending of Offline certainly gave those vibes, but I guess we'll have to see." Kyrie said, "I've been playing the global version since day one. It was an overall great experience. The game itself was fun, new content was coming in good distances at the start, and having so many characters from the series all playable and interacting with each other was a dream come true. There were times, especially during the summer and Halloween events, when Global tried to catch up to Taiwan a bit too much and threw in the events of 3 years and 3 weeks. Yeah, they did go pretty fast with that. But the pacing was generally good aside from such exceptions. While I don't know how it was for the other servers, the whole codes and streams thing Global had going was annoying though. The streams were always at times where in Europe it's late at night around 3 AM through 5 AM, and the codes expired way too fast. However, the real dark side of X-Dive emerged when the Taiwan servers went down. For the first few months everything was going as always. We still had a few updates and characters to catch up to after all, but ever since the global original content started, that's when things really went downhill. The only new content were S-rank versions of a few B-rank cards and likewise. S-rank copy-paste versions of Massimo, Lair, Vile, Zero Z, and Palette. Okay, I was only aware of Massimo and Zero Z, so they did do some other ones. I bet I heard about Vile too. Anyway, the final update the global version had received was in January 2024. So for half a year now, there were gradually more and more bugs and glitches, some which completely crashed the game and were never fixed. One of those, for example, is X4 Sigma. He quite literally cannot be selected, because his animation freezes the game, only leaving it reset as an option. I have a video of this problem that I tried to bring up to the devs before. Oh, that's a big yikes that they let the bug like that in for so long. And they haven't been updating this game since January of this year according to Kyrie, so I wonder if that's because maybe the EOS was decided in March, because those negotiations did not go well at all. And I remember seeing someone else saying that the stream stopped and at that point they knew that EOS was coming. So yeah, ooh. Kiri goes on to say, aside from that, any event, raid, or guild boss that was rerun always lacked any sort of music and was completely silent, alongside the score, point, and damage systems being displayed incorrectly. These past months, the game didn't receive any good treatment at all, but overall, it was a great experience. The characters and story are obviously thanks to the original team, rather than NebulaJoy, but as someone who, since the Taiwan server's launch, always watched the trailers and news in anticipation of a global version releasing, and then playing said global version since day one, I say that despite the ups and downs, a lot of downs this year, I really enjoyed my time. and I'm actually genuinely sad that it'll be over soon. I'm aware that offline is a thing, but even though it'll be much easier to 100% everything and max out every character and weapon offline, it still is sad to think that I'll lose the progress that I've made in the course of 3 years. Hours of farming, playing and enjoying, getting frustrated, pulling everything free to play, not ever spending a single cent in those 3 years, all of that just gone. It truly saddens me, but that's just how things are. The game was on its deathbed way before 2024, and it finally coming to an end is, while not the best course of action, a logical and expected one. Nothing left for me but to enjoy this final round. So Kyrie actually brought up a good point, and this is how I felt too when the Taiwan server went down, since that's the one I mained. Offline is amazing from a preservation standpoint, but it does suck that when you play a gacha game for so long, you put in pretty much your whole life during that time period, doing dailies every day, all the farming and everything, just to have that all gone. Not to mention all the money you might have put into it. It does feel like a waste once everything is shut down and it's gone forever. But at the end of the day, what matters is the enjoyment that you got out of the experience. The memories of the friends you made playing the game, and everything else, that's not going to go away. But you know, for me personally, Dive was basically my introduction into full-on gacha gaming. And I gotta say, now that it's gone, at least the online version, I'm probably not going to be starting any other gacha games anytime soon, unless for some reason they make another Mega Man gacha. God dang it. Because like some of these users here, I did get burned out too, just doing dailies all the time. And it was just the same thing every day, other than the occasional update. So the burnout was indeed real, and I don't think I would want to experience that again. I'd rather just go back to console gaming and play games at my own pace, you know? Variety is the spice of life, man. Anyways, Digiholic says, I felt like the global team was pretty unprofessional, but that also made it kind of endearing. The regular streams were just like some guy doing some PvP and doing some live pulls. It gave the game a nice kind of homey feel, but probably not great for growth. I had already burnt out before the Taiwan servers closed, and Global ended up just releasing B and A rank characters with stars cranked up to 11 as new S ranks. But I definitely think that they could have done that better. I wonder if maybe they weren't allowed to make new content. I think that is likely the case. They probably did ask Capcom if they could do these things, but they probably didn't let them because, you know, the Motherland game was already gone at that time, so why bother? There's a lot of goofy character concepts you could do with just a small team. I'll still never forgive them for missing the opportunity of Swimsuit Sigma. Here, brother. I'm also sad that they never did do Green Biker Dude. Alrighty, and we're gonna end this segment from a word from one of the moderators from their official Discord server back in the day. Sonokun says, I was a moderator for their Discord server for a few months, and played their version for a while. It was a huge freaking mess. From broken content like banners that NebulaJoy refused to take the blame for, to horrible decisions from the Discord staff. For example, some members of the staff decided to add a bot that would censor bad words. However, there were multiple channels for other languages in the server. If you typed sexta, Friday in Portuguese, your message would get deleted for having the word sex in it. There's also the whole thing with the ads. It seemed like I was the only one who gave a crap about them, because no one else spoke up about how awful they were, or about how misleading they were, like the ones that promised you free pulls and characters for downloading the game. All of this and much more ended up making me leave the modding team. Since then, I haven't played or interacted with the NebulaJoy version, not even once. I'm glad it's gone. I do remember back in the early days when those ads were happening, and like Sonokun said, they were indeed false advertising, like promising free pulls and characters, even though that was not the case at all. And I remember when Zero X got asked about that, he said something along the lines of, he hates those ads, they were done by a different team that's not really affiliated with what they're doing. So yeah, that was a big mess in itself from the sounds of it. And well, I didn't get to everybody as I wanted to focus on the global version specifically and not just the reviewing of Dive itself. But regardless, I appreciate everybody that replied to this thread. It has been very enlightening and I really appreciate it. The key takeaway from this appears to be that the game itself was fine, but that's more Capcom's doing than NebulaJoy. But there are definitely some grave missteps with how NebulaJoy themselves handled this game. And it's really unfortunate because having a global version or even just like a North American version of the game should have been a great thing. but ultimately Capcom's decision to offhand it to a third-party company instead of giving it to Capcom USA themselves ended up being a big mistake for them. I question why Capcom went for doing this at all in the first place, but after seeing everything, I don't really blame Capcom for ignoring the NebulaJoy version for as long as they have, and just wanting it to be done and over with already. And so, once this global version gets shut down, that's officially going to be the end of the online aspects of Rockman NEXT Dive. No more co-op, no more PvP, all we will have left is offline and the single player modes that are included within. Thankfully, we do have the amazing Dive modding community working on restoring some things. They've brought back the Devil May Cry collab in offline already, and last I checked, they restored the Guild Boss mode, which is amazing, as that was something not originally preserved in offline. And you know, if any other restorations are in the works, I can't wait to see them. I especially want to see co-op get preserved because those are some unique stages that are now going to be lost to time once the global version goes down. Otherwise, since this is the end of online NEXT Dive, all I can say is there were many downs, but there were some ups too. Like many of you have been saying, it was overall a good experience, and gacha elements aside, the core game itself was actually fine. Not the best, certainly not a replacement for X9 or anything, but it did have its good stuff. With that, finally, this is the end of today's Mega News. I hope you enjoyed the massive June recap. Definitely let us know in the comments what you thought about Capcom showing at not E3 this year. Are you disappointed that we didn't actually get a new Mega Man game announcement? Well, of course, we're always disappointed by that. But now that they are seeing that people really want Mega Man with the Super Elections poll, and they've been doing a lot of Mega Man themed collaborations with their big games lately, hopefully that's a sign that they do see that the people demand more Mega Man. And I don't know, I feel like if we were getting a new Mega Man game this year, they would be announcing that already. But you know, perhaps 2025, hopefully, pray to the Cap gods above that 2025 is the year that we finally see something. With that, I've been ShadowRockZX. Thank you so much for watching, and be sure to stay tuned for more things Mega Man. And of course, check out the mmnetwork.com for all sorts of Mega Man articles and videos like this one as well. Thank you to all our channel supporters, channel members, the members of which you will see on screen right now, and everyone that just watches. Until the next time everybody, rock on and have yourselves a great time zone.